Tommy, what do you think is the most popular car that Toyota builds?
Well, it's got to be the RAV4, right, Dad?
Yes, that's right. And so when there is a new RAV4, it's a big occasion. And that's why we are in the studio, because we are about to show you the new RAV4.
Boom! Check that out. Exactly right. So what we're looking at here is the all-new 2026 Toyota RAV4, the best-selling car in the US. They sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of these every single year.
Should I tell them the big news, or should we wait to the end?
Oh, we gotta wait till the end.
All right, we'll wait till the end, but there is some big news about this, which some of you might be able to guess, but let's kind of go through it. Now, this, of course, is the Woodland, which I believe used to be called the Adventure. It's the most off-roady one.
Yeah, so for 2025, they killed the Adventure and they killed the TRD Off-Road. Folks were wondering what was going on. What was going on was the introduction of a new off-roady trim. So the Woodland is the adventure-y, let's go camping version of the RAV4, and there's actually 3 different sort of categories of RAV4 we'll talk about in this video, starting with the Woodland.
Yeah, now let's talk about the design language, because that is, of course, what is most striking. And to me, they have gone all boxy and square, because apparently in 2026, if you build an off-roader, it has to be boxy.
So you remember the 2025 RAV4 had kind of these narrow headlights extending out toward the front quarter panels. The 26 has the headlights in line with most of the Toyota lineup, kind of the C-clamp look that we see on the Camry. And then on this one, we've got these little tear ducts, these little faux vents underneath each of the headlights.
Now, the one thing that strikes me immediately, which is a little bit concerning for the off-roady one, is the approach angle.
Yeah, so not a lot of approach angle.
Did I say not a lot?
It does have this little kind of bash guard, if you want to call it that.
Faux guard?
Yeah, it's really plastic, but it does have kind of this silver panel down here to make it seem a little bit more Tacoma or 4Runner, but this really isn't going to take a lot of abuse from any kind of rocks. Now, Dad, what I would say is this car kind of looks like the current RAV4 went to Minecraft camp.
I love that.
So everything is not only square, but it's blocky. So this whole front grille is a big block. Same thing with this little panel that protrudes out with the Toyota emblem. It's all very, I would say, chunky.
Yeah,
you know?
and now the chunkiness continues with these fender flares that you know, are very chunky, a la the Subaru. Same thing with the bottom chunk of plastic. I don't like this design language. It's really caught on now, but I think it's very heavy-handed, and it makes, in my eyes, the car look a little bit less expensive, because you can just see these giant chunks of plastic.
Well, the good news is, in this video, we're going to check out a bunch of different trims, and the Woodland is going to be the one that has the cladding, because this is the one that's meant to get dirty, right? And cladding now is associated with dirty. But if we look at the wheel and tire package, this is the biggest change for the Woodland. It gets about a ½ inch additional clearance over a standard RAV4, and that's because we're rolling on 235/65 R18 Grand Trek tires. Now, I wouldn't call this a true all-terrain. It's more of like a mild terrain or a trail terrain, but it's going to be better than what we'll find on some of the GR RAV4s here in a sec, for at least rugged roads.
Well, as you know, Tommy, today off-roading, especially after COVID, has become the thing. So if you want to show your active lifestyle credentials, you need a vehicle that is capable of going where the road ends and the dirt begins. And in order to do that, you have to have something with chunky tires and a lot of cladding. The question, of course, that we always like to ask is it real or is it just for show? And we won't know that until we drive it. But shall we start and talk about the back? I noticed it has a hitch. How much will it tow?
Well, when properly equipped, we're looking at 3,500 pounds towing with all-wheel drive.
Not bad.
1,500 pounds of towing with front-wheel drive. And then this Woodland has this just over an inch receiver, and they call this your adventure accessory point. So if you wanted to carry mountain bikes or that kind of thing, that's where those would go. But the tail end, Dad, looks a little Nissan Rogue to me. These taillights are crazy. We've got these striped designs from the quarter panel leading to the center portion. It almost looks like a lighted louver. What do you think of that?
I like it a lot, and I like the fact that they didn't necessarily connect it all the way across, which is the trend now. Of course, the other trend is that they put the name of the vehicle boldly across the back so that anybody following you will know what you're driving. But I like it. I think it works. I think it looks modern, and I think it looks fresh. Shall we see how much room is in the back?
Yeah, let's pop that power lift gate, the new RAV4 emblem shooting up. Now, of course, we're gonna find the Woodland badging on everything. And this version has these really handy all-weather mats that are on the floor. They're also on the backs of the seats. So you wanna take the camera really quick?
I will do that.
We gotta do the Tommy camping test.
All right, you're gonna try to lay down?
An essential test. Okay, first things first. This is what I love to see. Check this out. We have a flat transition from the floor into the back of the seat here. And then I am 6 feet tall. Let's see how we do. We're still a little scant on full interior specs in this vehicle, but at 6 feet tall, let's see, am I poking out?
Yeah, you're poking out. You're gonna have to lay
no.
across diagonally.
Shoot.
Blaze would not have room in there with you.
He would not, our Birdie's mountain dog. But look at this, 1,500 watts of onboard power. This is a huge amount of power, so if you want your camping lights or your lanterns or maybe even a little fridge back here, that's ready for adventure.
All right, well, why don't we pop the hood and show them what's under the hood, because it is, of course, a 4-cylinder turbo. But you knew that without me even having to say it.
It is not a 4-cylinder turbo.
It's not?
No.
It's a 2.5 liter non-turbo?
This car,
yeah.
This is the biggest news.
All right, tell me.
So, you would expect it to be a 4-cylinder turbo.
I would, and in fact, I said so.
Because everything in this category is a 4-cylinder turbo. But what we're looking at is
a V8.
I wish. It's a new hybrid system. So that right there is a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder NA. Mated to...
That stands for naturally aspirated.
Naturally aspirated.
I know a little bit about the car.
Mated to either the front wheels or all wheels. But the difference is, in the previous generation RAV4, if you wanted a hybrid, you had to get all-wheel drive. Now, every single RAV4 is a hybrid, and then there's an optional plug-in hybrid on top of that. Now,
well, you just buried the lead there, Tommy.
Well, that's
Look, why don't you repeat that? Every single
RAV4 is a hybrid, front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive.
There you go.
And then if you want even more, you can get a plug-in hybrid. Now I'm going to take the camera here, Dad. We're going to give him some beauty shots, and then I'm going to just run over the specs very quickly, because this is where things get very interesting.
Should I be in the beauty spots? Should I like be an influencer? Here, I'll be an influencer, okay?
Oh no.
Yeah.
This is going to go very badly. So
like this or like this?
So the all-wheel drive now makes 236 horsepower. And the front-wheel drive hybrid makes 226 horsepower. You're doing the Lord's work over there, Dad. The plug-in hybrid version of the RAV4 makes 320 horsepower. That is up from 302. Looks like we're shooting thumbnails over here. But
is that what influencers do, Tommy?
There you go.
That's
okay.
Over the shoulder look.
All right, we're cutting here. That was plenty, Dad. There we see the 60-year-old influencer impression there by Big Cheese. But if you get the plug-in hybrid system, you get a new material, silicone carbide semiconductors in the front axle, and of course you get those dual electric motors. But 320 horsepower is an insane amount of power. But of course, this one being the standard all-wheel drive hybrid is 236.
That's fine. You do the numbers, I do the comic relief. You're better at numbers than I am. Let's look at the interior because it is nice, actually, Tommy. It's very nice.
Bunch of changes on the inside there. Are you ready for me?
Lots of changes. Come on in.
So, check this out. That kind of squared off look is everywhere. If you don't like right angles, you probably are not going to like this new RAV4. But there's a lot of interesting design in here. Let's look at the steering wheel. The actual rim is a circle, but the airbag is this kind of crazy semi-rectangle, right? And then being this woodland, we also have this little red streak down the middle. We have this red streak here across the center. So there is some splashes of color to kind of break up the blacks and grays.
Now look, we've got a new screen and Toyota has moved away. Well, no, this is still too tiny. Remember we had the Tacoma and had a little tiny...
You don't like the tiny volume
No, I don't like the tiny volume knob.
So this is a 10... The standard screen is 10.5.
Yeah.
Optional screen 12.9. And what you'll notice, the operating system is a little bit different on this screen compared to other Toyotas that we've seen, right? This is running a slightly different operating system. It's got a new home button. It's got these new widgets that are permanent on this side. Of course, it has wireless CarPlay. The press release
said that the home button never goes away.
Home button's always there, and that's how it should be, if you ask me. That home button should always be there at all times. But I think that's great. Wireless CarPlay, wireless Android Auto. It has some new AI connectivity features. It's got better voice.
So let me show you what I like. They kept the more traditional gear selector, which is always good. And over here, I love these 4 little buttons. I think that's very elegantly designed. So you have eDrive or EV only, I take it. So we might get some EV only Toyota has not told us exactly how much EV only, but there might be some. And then over here, you got your different modes. You've got trail, snow, and normal, which is nice. And then over here, this must be hill descent control.
Exactly right. We got hill descent control. We've got traction control off. We have our surround view camera setup here. And then, like I said, these little shortcuts are cool. Now, this is very much a pre-production version, right? So I assume the BZ4X is not going to be there on the production version. But you've got normal, eco, sport, and custom. And then you've got snow and trail modes here, which is just cool. And then I really think that this cockpit, it feels a lot bolder than the last one. Now, look, Toyota's not going to go too crazy, right, Dad, with the RAV4 because they sell so many of these. They're not going to upset people that much. But I like that it's gotten a little bit more adventure focused in here. And I really like these seats. Do you want to show this red?
Well, before we get out of here,
I want to show this thing.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the
nice.
orange piping.
Yeah, this is nice, too.
Yeah, and it's like a neoprene material. I think it's technically a Softex.
Now, do you think these are two Qi wireless chargers or just one?
Just one.
Just one. They should have dual ones. So I'm going to be pointing out some of the things that I think are kind of a little bit awkward. This is already hurting my arm. If I put your hand down
this little tray.
Well, the problem is you put your hand here, and then there's this little thing right there, and you're kind of like that.
Okay, I could see that. We got a little storage tray here.
Let's see how much storage is in here.
Keep in mind, this car is, I'll open a sec. This car is very pre-production, so it might be that this is not the final material. Let's see. So hang on,
don't. I think it's going to all come off.
No, it's like this. Like pivots that way?
Or the other way.
Did you see that?
Yeah, or it pivots this way.
Or it pivots this way.
Yeah, that's cool.
Check that out. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it's very nice.
And then, once upon a time, it's a little
pre-production-y there.
Once upon a time, this would have told you, this little thing right there, would have told you what gear you're in. And now I bet your watch is your eyes.
That's right, yeah. This has got the latest, the very latest in Toyota Safety Sense. We don't actually know what that includes. Toyota's being a little bit mum about that. But we'll have more information on the full Safety Sense system as the on-sale date comes near.
Now, we do have a traditional, and by that I mean small sunroof, which is fine. And then I like the fact that we have traditional controls on the stocks.
Yeah, it's got buttons.
You don't have to reinvent stuff.
It's got buttons for like temperature, yeah. It does have, the heated seats are in the screen.
You know one of the things that I wish Toyota would think about changing, and they obviously didn't do it here. So they have this auto hold button.
Oh gosh.
Well, you started it. And the problem with the auto hold button is that every time you cycle it, in other words, every time you turn it on and off, you have to select auto hold. And auto hold keeps the car from creeping. I think people, especially if they've been driving electric cars, really like that feature. But it's super annoying when you have to keep turning it on every time you go to the grocery store.
Well, let's go ahead and check out the rear seat here. I'll take the camera.
Okay, I'll see if I can sit behind myself. How about that?
This one will be all you.
All right, let me see. Ta-ta! Well, obviously I can't sit behind myself, Tommy.
So let's just fold these up.
So being professional journalists, we'll fold these up.
There you go.
Because we know what we're doing. As you can tell, this seat is almost all the way back. And the answer is, haha, look at that, I fit because we don't have that huge sunroof. Sunroofs take up to about 2 inches of space sometimes, and that's great. It's a little tight in here, Tommy, just a little tight.
It's a little tight.
Why don't you jump in here with me?
Well, check this out. I like this a lot.
Okay.
For our furry friends out there, like my good friends Alice and Noah have a RAV4 and they love it.
Yeah.
And they've got a dog named Shrimp.
Okay.
Which is the best dog name ever.
Is it tiny?
It's teeny tiny, but if
it gets hot.
In case Shrimp gets hot, yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Shrimp's got some air vents back there.
And in case Shrimp wants to check out the internet with his phone dying or her phone dying, she's got 2 USB-C ports.
USB-Cs, that's right.
That's right. So there you go.
But rear seat the room pretty good. It's got a little cubby back here, and I really do like these seats that have this very neoprene finish on them. It's very cool stuff.
Yeah, I didn't notice that until you said so. It is really cool stuff. And once again, I would say the build quality in here feels kind of like it's punching above its weight class. I would say in our Foreigner that we just bought, some of the plastics feel a little bit elephant skinny like this. But this one seems to have soft touch materials in most of the places that you would rest your arm in. All right, Tommy, what's next?
Well, we've seen the Woodland.
Okay.
So now we're going to cut the cam and we're going to check out a different trim of the all-new RAV4.
Tommy, as you know, if it's a sporty Lexus, it's F-Sport. And if it's a sporty Toyota, it's GR. But now we have this, the brand new GR Sport RAV4.
That's right, everybody. So this is a RAV4 that's kind of been taken to a performance extreme, and we're entering a new category of RAV4. So we saw the off-road one. This is the street performance version of the RAV4. And Dad, what do you think of the looks?
Well, first of all, I gotta say, nobody will mistake the fact that this is not a GR product, because this is the first time I'm seeing it, but look, GR right there. Come on over here. GR on the brakes. Come on over here. GR on the headrest.
Yeah, it's everywhere. So this is, I think that F-Sport comparison is a great way to describe this car. So it's not a full-on like GR Corolla. You know, it doesn't have some crazy turbo engine or some e-brake that'll let you do slides, but it does have some impressive power, which we'll talk about in a second, and some crazy looks. So can we start back at the front?
Well, first of all, before we go there, look at the size of this spoiler on the back here. You know this is a sporty one because that is one massive spoiler, and you've got this kind of, dare I say it, I'm going to say it, faux diffuser.
Yeah, so this is actually not hollowed out, but the rear end here is very low and wide looking, and that spoiler is just crazy. It's actually like a wing on top of a little wing here with the gap, and you've got that little center streak there. It's a crazy looking rear end, but actually the front end is wilder. So why don't you take the camera here? Thank you.
Yeah, and unlike the Woodland, you don't have
the crossbars
or roof rails,
yeah,
because this is meant to go down the highway very quickly.
Well, look, I think that this is an interesting vehicle, right? It's like, it's for someone that wanted a GR Corolla, but maybe they have 2 kids and they've got some strollers and they just need some room, right?
Whoa. Are you saying this is a family getter?
It is. I mean, that's what it is fundamentally, but it still looks cool. So look at the front end of this vehicle. It's got a unique GR grille with these little hexagons that make their way across the entire width of the car. And then these look like they should be vents. These are actually not vents. These are faux. And then these are also not vents. Instead, they're little integrated lights here, which is cool. And we've got this deep front end, which is something you're never going to see in any other RAV4, but it's really cleverly designed. Like, look at these little winglets down here, right? They're actually rubberized, so they're not going to break off if you run them into a curb. So,
but you will. So hold on, before you painted with the family getter brush, I'm going to say that if this were in Tokyo, right, this would get the Liberty Walk treatment. You get it slammed, you get it fat fendered.
It has the Liberty Walk treatment. It's already a Liberty Walk RAV4. Look at it, it's wide, it's crazy. And these wheels are very super-ish, and you'll notice they're wrapped in an actual, essentially like a summer tire, right? This is the Dunlop Sport Max. I'm pretty sure this isn't even an all-season. This is like a dedicated summer. And these wheels with this little two-tone black and red with the GR brake calipers gives it a really cool look.
Well, I think we kept them waiting long enough. Could you open the hood for us, please?
Do you mind popping it?
Yeah, let's show them. This is a pre-production unit. So before we break it, we have a little helper here who's going to open the hood for us, and we will gaze upon this V8, Tommy.
Yeah.
This is the one with the V8, right?
Still not a V8.
Oh, shoot.
Thank you, sir.
But it is a plug-in hybrid. So what's the horsepower? 300?
320.
Wow,
yeah.
that is serious horsepower. All-wheel drive?
So the GR Sport comes standard with the plug-in hybrid. It is all-wheel drive, exactly right. Now the old RAV4 plug-in hybrid was called the what?
The old Prime.
The Prime, yeah. They don't call it the Prime anymore, but you'd get 18 more horsepower than the Prime. So we're looking at a 320 horsepower inline 4-cylinder hybrid system, right? eCVT, it's not a cone with the belt. It's actually a planetary gear set with a set of motors. And then it does have a rear motor in the back as well with no drive shaft connecting them.
Quick aside, Tommy, what's the fastest RAV4 ever?
Probably this one.
Well, I don't know. We haven't tested it yet. But excluding this one, you know the answer.
What is it?
It's the V6.
No, it is not.
It is the V6.
No, it is not.
Don't you remember the V6 RAV4?
We have this joke around the office that
yes.
the V6 RAV4 is the fastest car ever made. Because in 2009, it was absurdly quick. But the Prime is way faster. Yeah. I think like we have 2 of them at the office. That's how much our employees like them. And they have like 260 horsepower.
That's a lot.
But this is 320.
I know. But
it's also
crazy. It's also heavier.
Yeah, it's heavier. But look.
It's got a lot of batteries.
It's got spoiler. To keep it on the ground, that's how fast it is. So let's keep going around here. Did you see this too? It doesn't have the matte flares. Instead, it's got these.
They're shiny.
Yeah, it's got the piano black finishes, which I do worry about like long-term durability. And then same thing along the bottom. That cladding you didn't like is now piano black.
Yeah. You know how much I love piano black.
Yeah, but it does look cool against this kind of deep red.
And it won't be collecting dust on the outside, at least not the kind that you have to wipe off every time you get in the car.
Yep, and then check this out. It does have the black roof as well, the 2-tone look there, so it's got that floating roof.
Look, I gotta love this car. It's in TFL colors, Tommy, so that's already a big plus.
Here's that GR Sport badge we were talking about. So GR Sport down there. Blacked out Toyota emblem, still have chrome RAV4. It is missing one thing out back though. Do you see what I'm talking about? It doesn't have any kind of exhaust poking through. It's just a little guy out the bottom there. So no dual exhaust, which would really finish it.
Can you open the charging port, please? Let's show them the charging port. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, because you'll find, oh, interesting. I was expecting NACS. In other words, the Tesla standard, but we got CCS.
Well, it's still 1772 for AC charging.
Yep.
And then, according to the press release, it is available with DC charging as well, with 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes.
This may be a pre-production one.
Exactly right.
I thought they all had the Tesla standard.
Nope.
Okay.
No, RAV4 is sticking with 1772 as an 11.1 kilowatt AC onboard charger. And then the range has also gone up. So the old one was like, what, 40 miles? Yeah. The new one, we're looking at a full-fledged 50 miles of range.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a 20% improvement.
And we don't know all the specs on like kilowatt hours and battery, so we're going to have to get those when this vehicle gets near to production.
All right, well, let's look at the interior, because this will be the sportiest of them all. And, of course, you got these big bolsters,
You
Tommy.
can close it up, yeah.
You got these big bolsters on the side of the seats, which I'm wondering if I'll fit into.
Well,
only way to find out.
Yeah, so check this out. We got these, once again, we got like look at that suede material in the center, and then unique red piping with the red stitching along the bolsters to kind of separate this from the typical RAV4, right? GR even on the floor mats, and then can I show that something with that camera here?
GR on the door sill too, Tommy.
Door sill, that's a great point down there. It even has an aluminum finish on the pedals.
All right, let me see if I fit here. Yeah, I fit. You know, I fit in the GR Corolla, so I would think that I would fit in here. I like Toyota. They build cars for big people.
Ooh, this thing is cool. Check this out. You talked about that, right?
I think that's like 7 now.
Little say a GR there in the steering wheel. Look at this though. It's got paddles.
What do they do?
They probably simulate shifts. I don't imagine there's actual shifting here because it doesn't have a typical transmission. So that last car we looked at had that 10-inch screen. Look at the size on this screen.
That is monstrous.
It's bigger.
But you still have the tiny little volume knob.
Still have the teeny tiny volume knob, that's right. But we got like a 10-inch screen on this bad boy here. Bring that into life. Sorry, 12.9-inch screen. My brain is a little cooked from shooting all these cars.
Is it, does it really matter at some point? I mean, are people like, you know, going to Cars and Coffee and saying, hey dude, you've only got a 10-inch screen, whereas mine has a 12.9-inch screen?
Believe it or not, I'm sure there's someone out there that's really going to care.
I don't love all of the HVAC in there.
Yeah, but look, you still have like physical up and down for cold and hot.
Yeah.
That's quite good. And then you got, you know, your navigation system there. You've got your audio. So I think that this is an improvement visually over the current one, which I'm really happy about. And then check this out down here. Red stitching on the shifter. Right, we still have trail and snow modes there, and then look at this, soft.
Yeah, it's different. So maybe the previous one was a pre-production. Time will tell. Look, I think this is the one where we're gonna have to get it on the road to really come up with, you know, a serious answer, because obviously it looks fast, Tommy, but does it handle? Will it go around a turn? And how quick is it in a drag race from 0 to 60. These are all things that we're going to have to do when we get it into our offices.
You're exactly right, 100%. So we're going to have to stay tuned for that. But we got one other set of cars to look at. We're still not done. So we've seen the off-road, we've seen the sporty, but we're missing the core value model. So let's go check that one out now.
Tommy, let's recap. We have already looked at the RAV4. This is a GR Sport, of course. We started out with the Woodland, but there is one I believe will be the volume seller because this is limited.
Yeah, so this is our third pillar of RAV4s. We saw the off-road, we saw the sport, and now we've got the core models which come in the LE, XLE, and limited version. And this is going to be the volume seller, right, Dad?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think the Limited is going to be the volume center, but this is a good example of the one that most people will buy, because let's face it, these other two are going to be relatively expensive, so why not go with the one that is relatively affordable. Now keep in mind that this is the most popular car that Toyota builds, and in fact is the most popular car sold in America. It competes directly with the Honda CR-V.
Yeah, oh, it competes with a lot more than that. It competes with the Kia and the Hyundai. It competes with the Ford Escape, maybe the Bronco Sport, the Chevrolet Equinox, the GMC Terrain, the Subaru Forester. I mean, the list just keeps going. It is the most popular category, Volkswagen Tiguan in the US. So look, it's more evolution, right, than revolution.
Oh, of course, you know, whenever a car manufacturer redesigns or refreshes the most popular car in their lineup, they're never going to break the mold because it's already successful. So why mess with something that works? So let's take a look at this Limited and see what there is to see. What do you think of the color?
It's pretty cool, yeah. We've got kind of this dark gray / blue color, which is neat. And you're gonna notice the front end looks very different than the other ones we saw. So while that Woodland had these little tear ducts that would kind of drape down from the headlights, and the GR Sport had that low hanging front end, this is a much more standard looking SUV. This car looks a lot closer to the current RAV4 than the other two, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's see what the interior is like. And I'm thinking it's going to be a lot more basic, and I would say a lot more plain Jane in some ways. I mean, it's a little dark.
Yeah, kind of a sea of gray.
Yeah.
Like you'll notice you don't have the little orange accents that the Woodland has. You don't have the red stitching that the GR Sport has. But it still is a very functional and comfortable interior.
And
this one does have the 12.9-inch screen, and then it is missing one thing the other two did have,
which is a giant regular shift knob. You got this little itsy bitsy gear selector, which I'm not in love with, Tommy, but it does clean up the center console nicely.
Yeah, so you pull this back for drive or the regenerative braking, you push it forward for reverse or neutral, and then you push P to put the car into park. So pretty different than the big shifter in the RAV4.
Let me try something. This is how I like to drive. It's good, Tommy. It's very comfortable. I gotta say, Toyota has done a good job in making a car that is good for bigger people. I mean, the seats are very comfortable, and oh yeah, that lumbar support is wonderful. But do you have lumbar support?
Let's see. Oh no!
Oh, I hate when manufacturers do that, when they cheap up. This is a Limited. How come you don't have lumbar support on the passenger side?
Know.
What? Is your passenger not good enough to have, you know, a happy back?
But check this out though. The seats, you kind of mentioned it's meant for Americans, right? I think that this is one of the widest seats I've ever seen on a RAV4. It is very, very comfortable for wider passengers and drivers.
Like me.
No, not like you.
Like me, and I do appreciate that. The other thing that I like about this is that the steering wheel is leather wrapped and it's relatively thick. It's always nice to grab a thick old steering wheel. Some people like the thin ones. I like the thick ones.
Yeah, so look, the interior in this one, I do think that they kind of lost out on some of the color, and I'd love to see some kind of funkier materials. This one's fine, right? You got soft text there on the across the dash, and it's a fine interior. It's just a little bit plain Jane.
Yeah, so I have a question for you, Tommy.
Uh-huh.
Do we know the fuel economy?
No, we don't know the fuel economy yet. We also don't know the pricing yet.
We can guess at it.
Well, it starts currently at about $30,000 and then dives into the 40s for some of the top-end trims. But look, because this category is so price competitive, figure this new one is gonna be right around there.
Yeah, you know, every time they do a new one, they raise it up by a couple grand, and I suppose that's what's gonna happen here as well. But let me ask you this. If it were your money, Tommy, if it were your money, you've got 1, 2, 3 choices here. Which one do you buy?
Oh, for me, it's gotta be the Woodland. I think it's a little bit more show over go, but I really do like the front end design and how blocky and chunky it is. So this is the one for me.
Well, I'm going to surprise you with my choice because I would go for this one. Hell yeah, I'm going to go for the GR Sport, and I'll tell you why. That one, I kind of fear might be more poser than off-roader. I'm not saying you can't go off-road, but that approach angle, ugh. This, on the other hand, 320 horsepower, 50 miles of all electric range. You could actually drive this to work and back and never have to use the engine. And then when you pull up to the stoplight and that person in the CRV gives you the look, you've got 320 horsepower. Oh yeah, this thing's gonna be a rocket.
My concern with this one is gonna be the price point. You know, if this was $38,000.
It won't be.
Yeah, it's gonna be like 45K is what I would guess. And for that money, I don't know, I would be tempted to get a bigger vehicle or a nicer vehicle. So I think that's, and I don't think the Woodland's gonna be much cheaper, but maybe a little bit more affordable.
You know, we're on the same page. My problem with this is probably gonna end in terms of price where the 4Runner starts.
Sure.
So if you get the SR5 4Runner, I bet you it's not gonna be much off from where pricing wise this one goes to. And at that point, I'd rather have the one with the real off-road cred as opposed to the tires and the big cladding. Give me the one that I can actually take into Moab as opposed to, you know, a winter cabin somewhere.
You're forgetting though that this car has the all-wheel drive hybrid system, which is going to deliver much better fuel economy than the 4Runner. So if you didn't care about the off-road capability and you just want a tough road/no-going little SUV, this is going to be a better choice.
So I was just at Costco filling up my car, $2.85 a gallon, Tommy. I really am not that stressed about fuel economy, so the 4Runner is not going to bother me because I know it's going to have worse fuel economy. Of course, when gas, as it will inevitably, goes above $5 a gallon, then I'm going to be looking at this more. So, guys, thank you for joining us for this very, I would say, long and in-depth video on the new RAV4, but I think it was worth it because I believe Toyota sells over 400,000 of these every year, and that is a boatload, Tommy.
That's exactly right. And if you want to find out more, be sure to listen to our podcast every single week over at alltfl.com or look up TFL Talk on YouTube. And a huge thank you to everyone on our Patreon page who get early access to videos.
And of course, visit the link below to visit Granger Motors if you want a warranty that will give you peace of mind beyond the manufacturer warranty. And Tommy, where do they go for more TFL news?
Well, that's alltfl.com.
We'll see you guys next time. Ciao.